This podcast was brought to you by Snyder Curtains. If you want to block out the light and be alone with your important thoughts in the dark, these are the curtains for you. Hello and welcome to Monkey Broadcast, a monthly review and discussion show with me, the Jonin Monkey.
And me, Sven the Crusader.
And so, here we are in the month of February, and it's a month.
Yeah, it's the month of Valentine's Day, and I can't speak for anyone else, but I'm still alone. Also, I delivered that extra content rant in the last episode, under the presumption that maybe 2017 would at least start off better than 2016, and then John Hurt died. 2017, I hope we're not starting as we mean to go on. Rest in peace, John Hurt. I'm a little concerned.
Yeah, that is unfortunate, R.I.P., and let's not tempt fate any longer and get straight into
Q&A!
This is always our first section, where we answer questions from the audience. If you'd like us to answer your questions, either leave them in the comments or send them to me via Twitter with the hashtag MBQuestion. And many thanks to the people who responded to our concerns about the backlog, because we've got a very interesting selection of questions today.
Our first question comes from Mandu. Hi, Mandu. Haven't answered a question from you in a while.
How do you feel about the new direction the Fire Emblem series is taking? I feel like the franchise kind of lost a big chunk of its initial identity.
Oh, someone's gonna shit on us for this one.
Yeah, no matter what we do, really.
Yeah, and it's funny. I've actually had this discussion several times lately with several different friends. And, well, let's just open up by saying, Jonin, do you want to go first?
So you're opening up by using me as a human shield. Okay.
No, it's just I have thoughts.
What do I look like, Marcus?
Good one.
Seriously, though, for those of you who aren't aware of the Fire Emblem series, around 2004? It was actually 2013. Intelligent Systems, the studio that runs Fire Emblem, were put under pressure by Nintendo because the game that was about to come out, Fire Emblem Awakening, had to sell decent numbers or the entire series was being cancelled. So they kind of changed direction a bit, made it a lot more lighthearted in tone, and the focus shifted away from the political intrigue side of things, because it used to be a game based around strategy and warfare, and in many ways it still is, to a more focus on, I guess it would be fair to say, a shonen anime sense of drama and plot twists. And a lot of the characters kind of started being a bit more comedic, like, they would still have the same amount of development you would get in support conversations, it's just your initial impressions of them are always based on a running joke. Like, the first time you meet that character, they make it explicitly clear what their running theme is. Gaius is obsessed with candy. Sully is obsessed with exercise. Henry makes bad jokes.
Hisame is a pickle!
Yeah, that too.
Forever irritated by the fucking pickle.
To continue, because of that, plus some other things like allowing an option for first-time players to skip the permadeath option, that meant that rather than dying permanently when they fall in battle, soldiers would come back at the end of a chapter, and some like it. I mean, a lot of people like it, actually. In fact, I can't remember who made the original tweet, but it says something along the lines of 2004, Fire Emblem is on the verge of cancellation. 2017, Fire Emblem is coming to everything, including your fridge.
That's a stunningly accurate way of putting it. Basically, it went from being on the verge of death to being on the verge of flagship status like Zelda and Mario.
Indeed, yes, and that's an incredibly impressive leap. So obviously a lot of people like the new change its direction. But not all Fire Emblem fans are happy with it, and honestly I can understand why. Not just for the old fanboys never like change, grow up. No, nothing like that. I can fully understand why, because it's kind of hard not to see the difference, because me and Sven were cast in a Path of Radiant / Radiant Dawn fandom, as we have mentioned before, and looking back at that script, it's hard not to notice the fact that the characterizations are a little less subtle, and there's less of the political intrigue or philosophical discussions that would occasionally crop up, but it's one of those things where I have personal preferences, and I can see where other people are coming from. Like Gas Station, who does a Fire Emblem series called Support Science, which I would totally recommend, has mentioned in Q&As that he doesn't mind the idea of a player avatar, he just doesn't like the fact that they're the main focus of the story, since, as he kind of pointed out, thanks to that, Crom became a really generic Lord in Awakening. But whilst I have my own preferences, none of it's game-breaking for me. Like, yes, I would prefer if the characterization was a bit more subtle and not based on running jokes. Yes, I don't really understand why the character designs have to be based on the costumes for the class, especially when you add a class change feature that just makes the design even more awkward.
Yeah.
And the fan service is kind of creepy.
Yeah, no. I'm sort of in a similar boat to you in that, I'm gonna catch flack by saying this. With hindsight, I'm not that much of a fan of Awakening. The villain was perhaps the worst in Western Fire Emblem. The character development was not all that deep. And like you alluded to, the support conversations are pretty much based on personality quirks. Fates kind of worked against that. Before I touch upon that, let me just put out there how much I absolutely hate the phrase "the casualization of Fire Emblem." Haha, off. With Fates, even though people gave it no end of shit for the Phoenix mode feature, honestly, I felt like it sort of touched more on what Fire Emblem used to be. Like, you got support conversations like the line between Leo and Sakura, which I still love. Of course, you do have your quirky characters like the aforementioned embarrassment that is Hisame. And that's just scratching the surface. You also have Obero, whose entire character is being terrifying as
Actually, to be honest, I would say that was more to Perry, sorry to interrupt, because Perry is, for me, the biggest problem. Like, not only do they make her out to be completely psychotic in a way that no one seems fit to question, I might add, but again referring to Gas Station because he made a very good point about this, it's also nonsensical when you realise, wait, she's the retainer of one of the most level-headed lords in Nor who doesn't like killing.
Right? I mean, she's Xander's retainer. How does she get away with this? And actually, I'm glad you brought this up, because Perry is even more egregious than Obero, considering she's basically the Fire Emblem answer to Harley Quinn.
Yeah, basically.
So, Fate still has the good old Awakening quirks issue, but you have some gems in the supports that kind of harken back to... I hate this phrase because I'm always on the receiving end of it, having it said to me by some pretentious baby boomer. In the good old days.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, for me, this is the thing I feel about both Awakening and Fates, in that, yeah, there are some things which I would prefer weren't there, especially since I would wish they kind of relaxed a bit on the anime tropes like the yandere, tsundere, and the chimboyu.
And before you go on, may I just point out the fan service? Please tone down the fan service.
Yeah.
I mean, I realize that before Fire Emblem Awakening we had characters like Sonya, Khalil, etc., but the fan service now is getting a little out of hand.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole skin ship, and then there's that whole hot spray thing, which, yeah, the way they handle it is a lot better than most series, but at the same time, I won't be too upset if it's gone.
And the outfits. I mean, Camilla would not wear that. As a Wyvern rider, Camilla would not wear that.
Yeah, actually the funny thing is the Wyvern riders seem to be getting the worst treatment of it all, because it's either what Camilla's wearing or the maid outfit, which only really applied to one character. So...
Yeah, with an 18-foot dip in the back.
Yeah, but whilst they have been really up negative points, the reason why I'm still perfectly fine with them is that whilst they're not my favourite games in the series, they are still filled with gems. Like, to me, Fire Emblem is about the whole misfits becoming an army that eventually saves the world in one way or another, and obviously the support conversations, and most of the time, yeah, there are some ones that are still mainly quirky, but most of the time the support conversations are still good, and in the story you still have really effective bits of drama. Like, I'll be honest, Awakening's story is definitely not the best Fire Emblem story out there, but it still has really good moments. Like, I still love M's sacrifice. I still love the reveal of male master identity. Oh, it's Lucina. Smash Bros. Has spoiled it. It's Lucina. I love the moment when Lucina was revealed.
I mean, there's no real way to dodge around it whenever she's basically become one of the faces of the new Western series.
Indeed, yes. And whilst, yeah, Vidar was absolutely pathetic,
he was worse than the man he ripped off.
Yeah. I freaking love Walhart as an antagonist and his own little crew. I mean, admittedly, Cervantes wouldn't shut up about his mustache, but I still...
If my mustache was that glorious, neither would I.
Yeah, but at the same time, I do love his crew, and I kind of wish he had been the main villain, because literally, when I've tried to play Awakening, I have always got to that bit, and then the last act is a bit of a slog, but aside from the final chapter, that build up to that was epic. But yeah, and Fate is filled with similar things. Like, yeah, it kind of goes all over the place in terms of its logic, and it's really inconsistent about who the hell is making up the rules of the damn curse, but there are still many great standout moments in all three lines, even if the entire plot isn't put together very well. So yeah, long story short, I do have some preferences and some things I would rather not see in the new games, but at the same time, there are many things from the old games I am perfectly fine with not seeing again, such as the massive difficulty spikes.
Yeah, there is that. I didn't really have much of an issue with that because I've played the older games, specifically Thracia 776. Would not recommend unless you're a masochist like I am. But Fire Emblem was heading in that direction anyway because Fire Emblem 8 existed, Radiant Dawn Easy Mode existed, and even Path of Radiance was relatively forgiving. But at the same time, I can see how other audiences might have an issue with that, and that goes back to that whole casualization bullshit. Because, I will admit, there is nothing on this planet more frustrating than having to restart after Soren got eaten by a goddamn tiger.
Yeah, that's always one of the most frustrating things, and I was a staunch defender of the permadeath mechanic, and I kind of deliberately went, right, I'm gonna play classic mode and just barrel on through. And then, after having to restart that bloody tree chapter multiple times because of surprise attacks, and realizing, okay, because of my lifestyle, I now only have an hour a day. I do not want to waste that hour restarting the same bloody chapter over and over for bragging points that no one's going to care about. I switched back to casual mode. And on top of that, a point was raised on the RPG fan podcast by, I believe it was Pale Robbie or something like that. He pointed out, if you're gonna restart every time a character dies in a chapter, then what the hell's the point of permadeath?
That's a good point, actually. I mean, it's not like we ever accepted permadeath at any point beforehand in this fandom.
Yeah, I mean, unless you were doing some ridiculous speedruns, but that's about it, really.
Yeah, that's basically it. Or a set unit challenge like my friend Jules always does with Radiant Dawn. Oh, the final chapter where her team consisted half of Meg, Fiona, and Bastion.
Oh, wow.
But, yeah, I mean, I have my problems with the new games too. I'm not that big a fan of Awakening, though it did do some great things, like Don't Speak Her Name. We've already discussed that.
Indeed, yes.
But what people forget is the fact that without Awakening, we would be dead right now.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, we can talk about preferences, but it's kind of a moot point. Without Awakening and Fates, Fire Emblem would be F-Zero. It would be a franchise that would occasionally be asked about in Q&As, and Nintendo would just shrug and go, no one's that interested in it, really.
Yeah. So, for all its faults and the fact that it is basically a shonen anime at this point, Awakening did save us, and it did give us Fates, which nods more in the direction of the games that we really want to see. So, for that and that alone, I really can't complain too much.
Indeed. Plus, I should also point out that if you're a fan of old school Fire Emblem, I mean, it's been announced that we're getting Fire Emblem Echoes and Fire Emblem Heroes, which pays nods to both sides of the franchise, so yeah, it's not all bad, really.
Yeah, and may I also point out that Fire Emblem Heroes is giving something we've been clamoring for since 2003. Old school Fire Emblem characters with voice acting. Or as I like to put it,
Yeah, at the time of recording, we've only seen a couple of trailers, but man, I'm happy to see Eddie Udanino voiced.
Give me Lucia, give me Soren, give me Lucia, give me Soren. It's all I ask.
Indeed, indeed. But yeah, we've got a very good discussion out of that, and holy shite, it's only the first question.
Yeah, I hope this is not a two-parter.
Yeah. On a similar theme, our second question is from Infinity Zero, and he writes,
Fire Emblem Warriors has just been announced for the Nintendo Switch. Once you pick your jaws up from the floor / wipe your tears of joy, what are your thoughts on the concept? Who would you like to see playable and or as bosses? What do you think the story will be? And how do you think one game will balance the ludicrous loads of characters FE is known for?
Well, first of all, I think we've already touched upon the possibility of a Fire Emblem Warriors game in the context that it makes absolute 100% sense. The problem is, I can probably guess how they're gonna balance the loads and loads of characters issue. Lords.
I can see that, although in fairness there'll be plenty of spaces for others, because I've only casually dipped into the Warriors series now and then, by which I mean seeing a couple of clips and trailers and playing Dynasty Warriors 3 at MVL's house, but what I mean by that is, those games, although they're big hack and slashes, they're based on the Romance of the Three Kingdoms and the Sengoku Jidai, or the War in States period in Japan, so they're used to having rosters that are anywhere between 30 to 50 characters long. So, I think they should be able to balance it out.
True. Although I will say, well, we're probably gonna get mostly popular characters and ensemble dark horses, but the fact that this exists in the first place is enough for me.
Yeah, I can agree with you there. I mean, obviously we're gonna focus more on the popular characters, because it was pretty unfeasible for them to include every single possible character they could think of, but I think they should be able to work with it. I mean, as long as they have... Well, it's not even so much the unique styles as such, because what really sold me on the Tecmo team was the fact that they were able to create a really good roster based out of the characters in Legend of Zelda, and it's impressive in itself, but when you consider that half of the characters in Hyrule Warriors weren't actually combatants in the first place...
And I will say, that was very impressive.
Not to mention the crazy varieties of different weapons and fighting styles they use, and it already seems to be going that way with Chrom, because at the time of recording, we've only seen the initial reveal trailer and the one from the Fire Emblem Direct, where they've added the extra footage of Chrom smacking the ever-loving crap out of a bunch of soldiers, and I've already noticed right away that they did the same thing Project Cross Zone 2 did, which is made it so that Chrom can switch between different weapons. Like, he is smacking people with the Falchion, but he's also pulling out spears and doing the Ether animation, which Which, if nothing else, I would say is a positive implication that they'll be able to make unique styles for each character, because, of course, every single lord could equip different weapons, and, would you look at that? Another developer who, when making a big crossover, noticed that Fire Emblem characters can equip different weapons, and therefore can have unique movesets. It's almost like Sakurai was being incredibly lazy. But...
I mean, who could possibly think that Sakurai would put nothing but the height of effort into his works?
But, yeah, I'm really sold on the concept. I'm sure the story will involve some kind of dimensional portal that brings them all together, although, in fairness, they do already have the device there in the form of the Dragon's Gate, especially since Awakening has made it perfectly clear that all the Fire Emblem dimensions are linked together somehow.
Yeah, I was about to say, as far as how they would make the story work, well, Fates kind of answered that question with the existence of totally not Laszlo, totally not Selena, and totally not Owain.
Actually, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we've had Fire Emblem characters jumping between time and dimensions before, so it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and as far as antagonist goes, I just hope they don't fall back on Anankos, because so far that's been their only really dimension-related antagonist.
Yeah, that is kind of true, although I'm pretty sure they won't do, because we do have a big variety of bosses. I mean, if nothing else, I'm 90% sure the Black Knight's gonna be at least a boss. I mean, he has to be.
It's practically obligatory.
I will say that I'm pretty sure that we're probably gonna get, as well as the Lords, probably the main cast, because Koei Tecmo like to experiment with different characters that have different fighting styles and different weapons. I'm positive they're gonna include at least one character of each different class, like the Pegasus Knights, like the Paladins, like the list goes on, basically.
Yeah, and as far as Pegasus Knights goes, it's funny you should bring up important characters and the Lords, because there's pretty much no way Alencia doesn't end up in it. Which gives me hope that perhaps there may be certain blue-haired characters. I would also take Joffrey.
I'm also thinking that if we're going to go with the whole Fire Emblem characters can equip multiple weapons, then it's possible that the characters who can't do so will definitely be able to more because of specialization. Like, I'm really sure Lyn would stand out, for example, since she is primarily a sword user. Well, okay, she gets bows as well, but if she is in the game, she's probably gonna be like a highly specialized sword user, maybe even a quick draw style fighter.
Yeah, and frankly, I would pay a lot to see that. In fact, honestly, at this point, I would just pay a lot to see anyone who isn't Robin, Lucina, or Corrin.
That is true. I think that would be the only danger, because admittedly, the shots in the trailer focus on the legendary weapons from Fates plus the original Falchion, but after seeing what they're doing in Fire Emblem Heroes, I'm confident we'll at least see a selection of lords from the older games, even if they just end up being DLC content later down the line.
So, in other words, hype and hope.
Indeed, yes.
Our next question from Luffy McDuck reads,
With the announcement of the Hokkaido arc for Rurouni Kenshin, are there any other series you would like to see continued? Or, as in this case, making a story arc that was planned to happen after the Jinchu arc during the series' original run?
I can answer this question by saying, please Jesus, not Bleach.
Yeah, that is fair enough. First of all, on a side note, I'm incredibly excited for the Hokkaido arc. It's a really cool story idea. Honestly, I was happy with the way Rurouni Kenshin ended, but at the same time, I'm not going to refuse new content.
At the same time, to quote the history of Japan for the first time in a year, you want more.
Indeed, yes. As for series I would like to see continued, if we're thinking mainly of manga, two examples come to mind. One is another Nobuhiro Watsuki series, which is Buso Renking.
Of course, yeah. Actually, now that I think of it, yes, please.
Yeah, I mean, I know it wasn't as popular as Rurouni Kenshin, but I still like that series, and plus, In the developer's concept notes, Nobuhiro Watsuki kept mentioning that there was meant to be an arc where Victoria and Moonface led a revolution on the moon. A sentence that's only going to make sense in the context of the series, I should mention, but the idea of that, given the nature of those two characters, it sounded awesome.
Yeah, I mean, what's not to like? And speaking of what's not to like, as far as series, I would suggest Trigun.
Oh.
All of Trigun. I was satisfied with how it ended, but like you said, I would not turn down further content.
Indeed, yes. The other example I can think of is Red Sprite, which was a new Jumpstart series, because admittedly, it had a bit of a shaky start with no one on the villain side except the main antagonist being a big or memorable threat, but it was clear the series had a lot of potential, and it was kind of sad to see it end where it did, which is basically, well, we've finished this one arc, so this is to be continued with many more adventures to follow. That will never happen.
Yeah, and like I said, as far as my choice goes, I was satisfied with how Trigun ended, but it's friggin' Trigun, and I want more space western.
Well, you might get that with Mass Effect Andromeda.
That's true, actually. So hype!
With that, our next question comes from, well, he used to be known as Trainman666, but now he is known as Train the Dragon.
I could make a joke right now, but it's pretty well already been done.
Probably yes, I'm sure he's probably sick of it. Anyway.
So basically what you're saying is, ask away, Hiccup.
Yes. His question is, it's a two-part question. The first is,
What are some of your favourite game shows?
And the second part is,
Of the ones that are ending or have ended, which ones do you think have the potential to work well in a modern day format or should not be brought back?
Well, this is awkward because I haven't watched public broadcasting or any form of cable TV in about 2 years, so, Jonin?
I would say I'm in a similar position to you, with one exception. Well, two exceptions actually, but one of them's more of a panel show, so it doesn't really count as a quiz. The two shows I mainly tune in on TV for these days are Would I Lie to You, which is said panel game, and a quiz show called Only Connect, which admittedly often makes me feel really dumb at times because the connections they make are ridiculously hard. It's a good bit of fun, I think. For those of you who don't know, it's basically a British game show where two teams of three try to spot the connection between four sets of random clues. It is, like I said, incredibly hard, but really satisfying when you get one right.
I can imagine that.
Yeah, and it's also hosted by Victoria Coren Mitchell, who delivers this sublime, nonsensical deadpan at times.
To no one's great surprise, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I figured as much. And she says it all with a straight face, which actually makes a lot of sense considering she's a former poker player, but I digress.
Yeah, somehow everything about that makes sense and sort of explains things.
As for old game shows we would like to see revived or stopped, it might be childhood nostalgia talking, but I would not be opposed to seeing the Crystal Maze come back.
You're gonna have to explain this one for the silly old American over here.
Okay, I'm trying to remember if it was ever released in America, but basically, the Crystal Maze, oh god, how to describe the Crystal Maze? This is gonna sound bizarre, but stay with me. You have a team consisting of 12 people, and the host would take them round to 4 specialised zones, which were, admittedly, they were all different sound sets dressed up, but there was the Temple Zone, the Cyberspace Zone, the Aqua Zone. There was another one, but I forget its name off the top of my head. Basically, there were different environments. There would each be a small room with a different skill challenge. Sometimes it would be solving puzzles, sometimes it would be crossing a tightrope whilst trying to balance objects. There would basically be either intelligence challenges or strength challenges or athletic challenges, etc., etc. And if you beat it within the time limit, you got a crystal, which would gain you extra points on the final game that decided what prize you got at the very end. However, but if you run out of time, the person who was doing the challenge is locked in the room, as the only way to set them free is to expend one of your crystals, but that would then take away the extra time you got.
I'm interested in this already.
Yes, and then at the end of it all, there would be these final. In order to determine what prize or how much money you get. To be honest, I forget what they were really doing this for. To be honest, I forget what they were doing this for. In honesty, but after this, they would get into. Oh god, it's just dawned on me how silly this is going to sound when I describe it. They get into a giant dome, which is then pumped with air, and gold and silver tickets are then flying all around, and then they have to snatch the golden tickets out the air and put them into a box.
So basically, Quidditch.
Something like that, except there was a lot more of them. And, yeah, that was the Crystal Maze. I admit it sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud, but, believe me when I say it, a very entertaining experience back in the 80s, and I'm sure now that budget means we can make more convincing environments, I'm sure it would still be a hit.
Yeah, I can see that. And actually, on a similar note to that, I myself, I'm not going to go into as much detail as you did, but I would really love to see a return of MXC.
Okay, you're going to have to explain to the dumb British person over here.
Believe it or not, it's not an American show by creation. It's a Japanese show that we Americans dubbed over with silly dialogue. Basically, contestants are put through several gauntlets. There's really no prize or any physical victory beyond being the victor. And it basically just exists for the sake of audience amusement. I believe it was called Takeshi's Revenge or Takeshi's Castle in Japan.
Yes. I think we had that same series brought over here as Takeshi's Castle. And yeah, it was similar premise, someone dubbing over footage of a Japanese game show.
Yeah, and I mean, the humor was about on the level of Conker's Bad Fur Day. But because in my heart of hearts I'm still 13 years old, I would really love to see that series again.
Indeed, yes. Yeah, I think that's the closest we can think of to answer this question. I mean, unless you have any game shows you think should remain dead.
Not really. I mean, my opinion of game shows is just, they exist, but that's all they really do for me. I don't hate them, I don't love them. I mean, correction, I do absolutely love it whenever the runaway guys play Wheel of Fortune, but that's as far as my viewership goes.
Yeah, I would be in the same boat. Yeah, not really anything I can say beyond that. I mean, nothing's really earned my ire. Except for maybe the weakest link, but that has more to do with the host, and her career's gone, so...
I guess you could say she was the weakest link. Goodbye. Also, on the note of Wheel of Fortune, Calibrary Cuff Paula Deen. That is all.
Indeed, yes, I can't edit any better than that.
Our next question from Roy Havenstone reads,
What are your thoughts on the future of Dragon Age now that lead writer David Gator has left BioWare?
I'm not really concerned, honestly, because, I know Mass Effect is operating on pretty much an entirely new staff, and Andromeda looks good.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, when he was sending me this question, Roy also mentioned that we haven't heard anything about a new Dragon Age project, so there were some fears in some circles about this being the end of the series, but then again, Inquisition kind of, without spoiling too much, ended on a massive sequel bait. I'm not going to say anything other than Dreadwolf.
Yeah, let's just leave it at saying that something happened somewhere to someone at some time, and now there may or may not be another apocalypse about to happen.
Indeed, yes. So, somehow I doubt this is the end of the series, especially since Well, let's be blunt about this. Inquisition sold very well and got high praise in reviews across the board, so I seriously doubt they're going to end this series. I think they're just focusing all of their efforts on Andromeda before they move on to Dragon Age.
Yeah, that's the sense I get too, and honestly, if Andromeda is anything as good as it looks, I'm willing to wait. Also, I'm still making my way through Inquisition. Again. Holy crap, Inquisition.
Yeah, I mean, I finished Inquisition, although I still need to play the DLC for that, and I also still need to actually play Mass Effects 2 and 3.
Yeah, hopefully without the black screen of Doomy Dooms.
Oh, thankfully it's been much better since those days. I say this as I stare at my lovely new monitor, but yeah. As for future of the series, honestly, the only fear I might have is that we kind of lose the complex antagonists that I loved about the Dragon Age series and get more generic villains like Corinthius. But at the same time, it's really hard to know what to say about the series because, to be honest, Dragon Age Origins kind of wrapped up most of its story details anyway. And whilst Dragon Age 2 left on a sequel hook, Inquisition pretty much wrapped up everything related to that, save for the sequel bait I mentioned at the end, so it's not like this is one writer's singular vision, and I'm sure there are many in BioWare who appreciate the complexities of the series and are willing to carry on that side of things, so I don't think it's going to be too drastic a shift anytime soon.
Yeah, and as far as villain complexity goes, that sequel hook you mentioned, and I do say this, knocking on wood, pretty well paved the way for an interesting antagonist. I won't say who.
Yeah, that is actually a good point. I mean, I do need to look a bit more into the lore of him, but yeah, otherwise, it will make for an interesting antagonist, much more so than Corinthius.
Yeah, not that that's difficult. I mean, Corypheus had Valadar outclassed, but that's not saying much.
Yeah, to be honest, he's just kind of a big ball of evil that exists.
Yeah, so basically he's the president. Moving on.
Oh, I can feel the dislikes already.
The dislikes.
And our final question, as always, comes from Toon Junkie.
Whatever happened to that sales pitch guy you had doing the wonderful anti-running PSA for you? I wish to employ him to help alert the good people about the dangers of breathing. It's highly addictive and 100% of people who start will never stop.
I would point you in his direction, Toon Junkie, but right now I'm pretty sure, from what I recall, he's a pile of bones in the forest. Zombies happened, as zombies so often happen. So I think what you'd need to do is go find his remains, gather them all together, at least what you can, and take them to a crystal of healing, and he should reappear somewhere, probably in his office, at which point you can go find him and offer him a contract, and maybe, just maybe, you too will be able to successfully warn people of the dangers of everyday human functions.
I don't know where to go next, because that was a really brilliant answer, but that was the wrong character.
Wait, whose bones did I find?
Those would be Jack's, who is very similar to the salesman. In fact, I think it's his brother.
Okay, Toon Junkie, if you find the salesman, you may want to inform him of the passing of his family member.
Yeah, okay, I have two answers for this. The boring, out-of-character answer is, I like him, I want to bring him back, but I genuinely have not found a good place for him, and I don't want to just force him in for the sake of it. The in-character answer is, a lot of people are asking him how to sell their ridiculous concepts, and I think he was working for...
Also, in all seriousness, I'm pretty sure anyone who pitches a Gigas advertisement is bound to get a lot of questions. In fact, I'm pretty sure at least a few thousand people here in the United States are probably looking into ways to very quickly end the world before their suffering continues. So, I can imagine his phone is ringing off the hook right now.
Or at least how he managed to conveniently get out of that situation. But anyway... Callbacks are the best. Anyway, that concludes our Q&A session, and once again, thank you for sending the questions, guys. We got a really good, diverse bunch of topics, and feel free to send us more.
Yeah, especially you, Toon Junkie. You are clearly the MVP of these questions.
Oh, don't worry, that's never an issue. In fact, I'm beginning to think he might have an addiction because he won't stop sending them.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that one of the only immortal things in this universe is Toon Junkie, followed closely by the culinary fury of Gordon Ramsay.
And on that note,
we end on the best way possible.
Indeed. It's time for us to move to the next section, which is...
Reviews!
This is the section where we review anything else we read, watched, or played this month. This month, it's purely down to me to review something, and there were several candidates. I was tempted to talk about Metal Gear Solid 3, but then there's always that niggling doubt of, oh, I could save that for a VGT to talk about it, so I might save that for a rainy day. Lucha Underground hit its mid-season finale, and I'm probably not going to get an episode out in time for that, given the nature of my life, so...
Yeah, working in the education industry, and also working for a bunch of businessmen who couldn't find their ass if they were sitting on a toilet seat.
I thank you to not disrespect my clients that way.
Oh, they'll never see this video, I say as I very quickly apologize and very gratuitously praise the wonders of corporate capital. And go.
Okay. And also, the other problem with Lucha Underground is, if you haven't seen my videos, you're probably going to get very confused when I start talking about cyborgs who have gained the gauntlets of gods, pretty much one-shotting an undercover cop who is dressed up like a spider, who then gets screamed at by another wrestler for looking like a spider stalker.
It's brilliant, folks.
Yeah, but there is one thing that's ended recently. Well, the current season has ended, and it's looking like it might end forever, depending on how you interpret the finale, but whilst it's a series I've kind of put down as, okay, this has just been ridiculous, I need to move on, there's a part of it that's been niggling at the back of my mind for a while, and I feel it would be better if I just got it off my chest so that I can move on, especially since it concerns a figure that both me and Sven are aware of. The series in question is Sherlock.
Oh dear. Yeah, I've heard that this latest season of Sherlock was less than stellar.
Yeah, see... Okay, it's best to start from the beginning, because Sherlock was a series I really did enjoy for the longest time. Basically, it's the story of Sherlock Holmes, but modernized, so... It's in the present day, and Sherlock now frequently uses text messaging and his phone in order to find clues and get in touch with people, which makes sense, actually, because in the original stories, Sherlock Holmes was always keen on technology. In fact, I think one of the stories had him very excitedly buying an original telephone when they were first invented. I can't quite remember.
That sounds like a thing that would happen, to be fair.
Yeah, and... rather than writing them in a book, Watson writes them all on a blog, and yeah, little details like that that basically modernize it and smooth it out and just bring us a interesting blend of the old-fashioned mystery cases and modern-day thriller with the brilliant acting skills of Benedict Cumberbatch as Sherlock and Martin Freeman as John Watson. And Sherlock, with his amazing powers of deduction and long analytical speeches, goes around solving crimes with the unlucky Watson being dragged along in tow.
Yeah, that sounds about accurate. I mean, I'm not a Sherlock reader or watcher, but that's basically the summary of everything Sherlock dating back to the days of the original books.
Yeah, and each series consisted of 3 hour-and-a-half episodes, and I know it sounds like a ridiculously long time for one episode of television, but honestly, it was really enjoyable and engaging. The writing was always very solid, and the direction was really brilliant, so even though you do get scenes where it's basically just Benedict Cumberbatch monologuing really, really fast as he goes through each of his deductions, the musical score and the way the scene is shot so that you see his thoughts dancing around all over the screen as he follows one connecting point to another really adds this wonderful visual punch that makes everything really lively and engaging. And like I said, the stories were really good, and it was really fun to see how it got modernized. Admittedly, as each season progressed, it got a bit sillier.
Yeah, I mean, it is a Stephen Moffat series.
Yeah, it's kind of a co-series, because the head brothers were Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss, I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Yeah.
The two of them wrote the series together, and for a while, it was a really fun and engaging romp. I mean, yeah, like I said, the story started to get a bit more thriller-esque, and the resolution's a bit weird. Like, there is a plot point where the British had set up this flight full of dead people that would attract terrorists so that they could blow that up and lure them out of hiding somehow, which I'm still trying to get my head around that.
That's a plot so convoluted I almost think the CIA came up with it.
Yeah, and believe it or not, that was a subplot of an episode, but
Oh my god, really?
yeah, but it was all still pretty good. Like, even the last season, which some people were down on, I still enjoyed. I mean, yeah, admittedly the first episode was kind of tedious since it had to basically resolve the previous cliffhanger of Sherlock killing himself and re-establishing the fact that after being away for a year, he's back in Watson's life. And I will admit, the one thing I did find amusing about that episode is that Sherlock is desperate to tell someone how he escaped from death, but Watson is just not interested.
Just like, yeah, Sherlock, that's nice. Could I please eat my breakfast now?
Well, it's not even that. It's more the fact that Sherlock's sort of going, when we were standing on that building, there were 13 different ways out, and Watson just goes, no, I don't care how you faked your death. I'm wondering, why did you fake your death? Why didn't you tell me what was going on for a year?
There is also that.
That episode was kind of long and tedious, but after that, you had John's marriage to Jane, which was a pretty fun episode, considering Jane was also a fun character in her own right, and it was just a lot of a straightforward, fun wedding episode that was kind of cool, and that all led into the third episode, which revealed Jane's backstory and tied everything together, and yeah, not the best season, but still an engaging one. Then this season happened.
You know things can only end well whenever the review begins with that phrase.
Yeah. The best way to sum up my feelings is actually a scene from, I believe it was from the second series of Sherlock. At the end of it, oh, by the way, this review is going to have minor spoilers from here on out, so, okay, in some cases major spoilers, you've been warned. It happens around the second season when Moriarty believes he's defeated Sherlock. The two of them meet on the roof, but rather than gloating about it, he's despondent because he wanted Sherlock to be a rival who could challenge him, but now that he knows his weaknesses, it's way too easy to defeat him. That's kind of how I feel after this season right now, because I see how the series has failed, but I don't take any joy from it. I just feel like you could have been so much better. I really liked you, and this is how you end off, really?
Yeah, I can sense the disappointment coming already.
Well, it's a thing. It didn't start out so bad. I mean, the first episode of the series, it at least was engaging. I mean, it had pacing problems up the wazoo, and it ended with Mary's death, which I thought was a massive misstep, especially given the fact that she still shows up in the other two episodes, be it in flashbacks or John's imaginary friend. So I don't know why they bothered. Also, considering that Watson was married in the original stories, and amazingly they didn't kill her off then either.
Oh, Moffat. When will you ever learn that the best way to develop a female character is not, in fact, to murder her horribly or have her become a cosmic plot device?
Yeah, and I mean, I want to pretend it's something else, because I don't like calling out individual people, but I'm going to be blunt. The reason I brought this up is we need to talk about Moffat. We really, really do need to talk about him.
Oh, please go on. I've been waiting to at least listen to a rant like this for a while, ever since he abandoned ship on Doctor Who.
Yeah, it's the thing. a lot of people will say that you can't really judge a writer by the end product of a TV show or a movie because, well, changes happen, there are millions of people on production, what can you do? But, well, two things there. First off, Moffat is the co-producer of this project, so I think he has a fair amount of control in how it turns out. Second, the reason we bring up Doctor Who as well is because that is another show where he has massive creative control as the head writer, and there are patterns which happened in Doctor Who that have started to, I was going to say creep into it, but no, have leapt into Sherlock out of nowhere and have started dancing in front of the camera in order to draw as much attention to themselves as possible, so I feel we do need to talk about it now.
Yeah, so basically all of Moffat's faults finally found Sherlock, jumped in, and are now dressed in grass and doing a hula.
Yeah, basically. They've basically made themselves such a clear pattern that I'm fairly confident he's the one responsible, and it's just all irritating things, because again, I don't hate Moffat as a person or as a writer, because he can produce really good episodes of television. Like, everything he writes, it is engaging. Like, you're never bored throughout it at any point. You're always keen to see what happens next, and he often introduces interesting new concepts into a series. Like, River Salt ended up becoming extremely overused, but at the time, she was a really interesting character concept. The idea that she is someone the Doctor has already met in the future, and she knows more about the Doctor's future than he currently does at that moment. It's a really, really interesting concept that did add a bit to the show, even if it, again, became really overused after a while.
Yeah, and as I think I mentioned in one episode of Monkey Broadcast, he's an excellent writer whenever he's answering to someone else, and is only there for a single episode or two.
Yeah, but I think that's the problem. When he gets full control and the confidence that he knows what he's doing, he starts to get a bit self-indulgent. Well, there are two main aspects of his bad habits that came out in 4. But I mean, most of the time it's okay on Sherlock, because, again, it's co-produced with Mark Gatiss, so he's able to balance him out most of the time. But the first is his obsession with twists. I brought up the Moriarty scene not just for the sake of being pretentious and dramatic, but also because in that episode, which, on an interesting note, was not written by Moffat, although I'm sure he planned out the plot.
Or at least supervised it.
Yeah. In that episode, Moriarty, the reason he's so disappointed in Sherlock is because the reason he beats him is because he says, "I figured out your weakness, Sherlock. Everything has to be clever with you so you can show off." And I feel that is exactly the same thing that Moffat does, in that Moffat will go out of his way to make a plot ridiculously convoluted in order to make the twists and surprises work. There is a new villain who is revealed in the final episode to be going up against Sherlock, and the way she does this is really random, because she decides to mess with them for the first 2 episodes, and it's revealed as the big cliffhanger at the end of the 2nd episode, where she reveals that she has been disguising herself as Watson's new therapist, a distraught girl who came in and told Sherlock about the case of the big charity tycoon who is in fact a serial killer, which kicked off the 2nd episode, and on top of that she deliberately handed him a letter which had been soaked in the sun in order to give him deductions to find. And she also, in a subplot that seemed completely unnecessary in the 1st episode, and is now completely and utterly ridiculous in hindsight, she has also disguised herself as someone on the bus who chatted up Watson and convinced him to cheat on his wife, although, that said, it wasn't even cheating in the traditional sense, it's just that he sent flirtatious texts to her back and forth before deciding you know what, this isn't working, let's break it off, I shouldn't be doing this. And the big twist is, I have disguised myself as all three of these women. Which, yes, it all links back together in one brilliant twist. But why? Why is she doing this? What does she possibly have to gain from bringing a bit of confusion into John's life and sending Sherlock after a serial killer? What does she gain? It's an incredible twist, but this is such a convoluted way of messing with someone that they barely... I mean, what is the point? What was the point of this?
So basically, to quote an old Let's Play, what the sense make?
A better way to explain this in hindsight is what Little Karibo used to describe the differences between WWE SmackDown and WWE Raw. SmackDown creates a storyline, WWE creates moments. The reason Past Me was so baffled was because, well, Moffat's writing style is to create scenes that are good in isolation and writes weak excuses to connect them. The moment when the therapist reveals herself as the main villain of the series is a great dramatic moment in itself, but when you think for a moment about the wider context of the story, there is no reason for her to do this. The only reason she does it is to make that reveal. And if all she wanted to do was deliver a message to Watson and Sherlock, then there are many other simpler and more direct ways of doing it. And it also makes the episodes difficult to watch the second time round, because you realise that a lot of the scenes aren't contributing anything to the main plot. They're just either trying to kill time or distract you before they can deliver the main twist.
Yeah, when Moffat gets really bad, his episodes can be summed up as, basically convoluted plot twists and self-indulgent fluff.
Basically, yeah, and the third episode was especially bad in that case, and you mentioned self-indulgence. It also leads to something else about Moffat, is that he can never leave small, established details alone. If something has been previously established, Moffat will waste no time in either retconning it or writing a story about it before anyone else can, in the hopes of creating another memorable moment, rather than a satisfying story. We already had that in Doctor Who, where Clara just goes from a girl who happens to be unique at several points in time and space to, I jumped into the Doctor's time stream and have been battling the great intelligence at all times in space. I am the most important character in Doctor Who. I am the most important companion ever.
Yeah, that was unfortunately a thing that happened.
Yeah.
Man, I really wanted to like Clara, too.
Yeah, I wanted to like her as well, but it was very clear that Moffat created her purely for that twist and had no idea what to do with her afterwards.
That happens a lot.
A lot, yes. Other examples from his Doctor Who run include the entirety of Riversong's arc, the unceremonious end to his search for Gallifrey, and bringing Tresilor, the great battle that results in the Doctor's death, into an average Christmas episode, and then retconning it. But this is all leading up to the fact that there was this running theme in Sherlock that there's an east wind coming. It's a phrase supposedly referred to the fact that apparently Mycroft used to tell Sherlock stories about how there was an east wind coming that would destroy anything in its path, and apparently it used to be a metaphor for Sherlock, but oh no, Moffat decided he couldn't leave that alone, so we have a big revelation that has never been established before, that came literally out of nowhere in a really forced conversation where, during the second episode, Watson's imaginary version of Mary tells him to start pestering Mycroft about a tongue slip that, I should mention, Mycroft is Sherlock's brother. He said something like family members as a tongue slip, and Mary just forced him to insist on it so he could blurt out, oh, do you have a secret brother or something? And then, at the end of the second episode, John's therapist reveals herself as, oh, my name is Uros. It's Greek for east wind. What? Did you not think the secret brother might have been a secret sister?
Oh, God. Okay, I'm not gonna give Moffat all the blame for this one, because I looked into it and apparently the secret brother plot is a thing in Sherlock. Why? But I will give Moffat plenty of for the execution.
Yeah, but whilst there are enjoyable little writing quirks here and that, episode 3 was just the culmination of all of Moffat's self-indulgent tendencies and his flaws as a writer that were all proudly on display. Granted, it was co-written with Mark Gatiss, but at the same time, the hallmarks of Moffat's style are really easy to spot at this point. Okay, so, the second episode ends with this big cliffhanger. Uros pulls out a gun and then says to Watson, "You have such pretty eyes. I think I'll leave a hole in one of them." Shoot to black.
Yeah, that sounds like Moffat.
So, the third episode, it starts with something completely irrelevant, which is a little girl apparently trapped on an aeroplane, desperately using a mobile to ring for help. This is set up for a hostage situation that will occur later in the story. That turns out to be a psychological metaphor. I'm dead serious. And then we cut to Mycroft, who's happily sitting in his home watching an old-time video projection, which raises the question of why he uses an old-time projector rather than a DVD like most normal people. But of course, the old-time projectors, you can't do the old horror cliche of the footage burning away or someone writing "I'm back" into the films.
Well, at least they're convenient for that.
Yeah, it then kicks off this 5 to 10 minute fake horror sequence where a little girl runs through the halls, pictures her crying blood, a clown appears out of nowhere and brandishes a sword because why not?
And in my case, because yeah.
And then it's all revealed to be a massive prank by Sherlock and Watson in order to get Mycroft to reveal that there is a fake sister, and they just have a throwaway line that goes, "By the way, she shot me with a tranquilizer dart." Yeah, but still.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, it's this weird thing Moffat does where he will set up a cliffhanger and then next episode completely ignore it and then just give it some throwaway line of, "Oh, yeah, it was all sold off screen, no biggie."
Wow. Wow, that is not a Moffat plot twist. That has crossed dimensions and become a Bleach plot twist.
Indeed, yes, but the episode continues with so much indulgent fluff because they're meeting in Mycroft's flat, but then they decide to bring him back to Baker Street for no other reason than messing with him. Even as Mycroft points out, if time is of the essence, why are we wasting time with this? He then reveals all about the secret sister, and then a drone appears with a motion sensor grenade, which could indeed be a really intense scene, because, you know, there are 3 men explosive in the house, as they have to move quickly or else they're all gonna die. And credit where it's due, it was a tense scene on its own. After making some quick exchanges, they all decide, okay, when we move, we're gonna make for the windows as fast as possible. We then cut to a really bad green screen shot of Sherlock and Watson leaping out of the window as the building explodes behind them.
Of course.
And we then cut to Sherlock and Watson robbing a fisherman for disguises.
Wait, what?
Yeah, we just randomly transition from that to fishermen who Sherlock then raid for disguises so that they can go to the secret island facility that Uros was being held on, because of course it's a secret island facility.
Yeah, because why should this make any sort of grounded sense?
Yeah. Then there's an overly elaborate sequence where they make it into the asylum. Mycroft interrogates the heads of the facility while Sherlock continues the disguises in order to go and talk to Uros, and And this all then leads into the other big revelation, is the fact that Urus has managed to brainwash / control everyone in said mental institution, which then allows her to knock out Sherlock, Watson and Mycroft, and it leads into what the actual point of the episode is. Saw!
Dare I ask you to continue?
All this time, which is about, I want to say close to 45 minutes at least, is ridiculous self-indulgent fluff to get to Oros on a secret island installation, basically tapping into her inner jigsaw and going, "Hello, you free? I want to play a game." The game involves you having to decide if you're going to kill someone.
Oh god, it really is Saw.
Yep, it's that entire scenario, and so ridiculous because I won't recap the entire episode, but basically, Moffat and Gaffis, although mostly Moffat, given his writing style, they have these ideas of what they want to get to. They want to have these plot twists about the backstory with Uros. They want to have these big plot twists where Sherlock is put in situations where he has to kill innocent men, or he has to kill either Watson or Mycroft. But they bend over backwards to try and make these things happen, and it's at that point that any kind of logic, consistency, or sense goes completely out the window, because despite the fact that she seems to be working from this mental installation with no money, equipment, or identity, she somehow, based on a 5-minute conversation with Moriarty, that's not me exaggerating, they actually specify 5 minutes of unsupervised conversation, she apparently gets the ideas and the resources to lure Sherlock, Watson and Mycroft into the same building, set up these SAW exercises, which, by the way, gets 3 brothers who may have been involved in an unsolved crime so that she can dangle them outside of a window in dramatic fashion.
Because why not?
And setting up TV screens all around said installation and tranquilizer dart guns.
I have no words for this.
And then, as the final stroke, when Sherlock seems to be going against what she's trying to do, she knocks them out with tranquilizer darts, and logically you'd think the final trial would take place in the institution. But nope. It, for the sake of symbolism and what is supposed to be dramatic irony, she takes them back to the Sherlock's holiday cottage.
Wait, what?
Yep, just they've been hit by tranquilizer darts, cut to black, and then they're suddenly in the burnt remains of the Holmes holiday cottage, and Watson is drowning in the same way as she drowned Sherlock's dog, for you see, it's returning to the events that started it all! It's dramatic!
Moffat, have you finally lost it?
Yeah, especially considering that this is, even if I completely ignore all of the nitpicks like budget, money, and the fact that this is all meant to be done by a woman with severe psychosis who is not in control of her own actions, it's...
Yeah, I mean, on what planet does this make sense? I'm not concerned about the fact that the antagonist planned this. I'm concerned about the fact that Moffat planned for the antagonist to plan this.
Yeah, it's just... It all leads to this whole big thing, which at the end, of course, sob story, all Oros needed was someone loving and caring to give her a context and teach her humanity, friendship, heart, the cards, what have you. It's just pure self-indulgence. Like, there is no... It's not just logic, it's restraint. Like, by going back to the house after taking this long to set up the prison island / SAW situation, Moffat is hoping to have his cake and eat it as well, and he's hoping that by cutting to black in between scenes, you won't notice the giant monkey wrench is inadvertently thrown into the works. It's frustrating to both Sherlock and Doctor Who because they're all surrounded by great actors and great directors who bring out this incredible visual style. Like I said, Sherlock is able to create these wonderful visuals that give all of these... Is able to give all of the thought process in Sherlock Holmes's head, like, visual clarity for the audience and make it really exciting. But when the writing is this ridiculous, this convoluted, and this self-indulgent, you start to realise this is all a way of disguising the fact that Moffat's basically locked the characters into monologues, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. They're basically dimension logged into the monologue reality. Just forever.
It's just so sad, because like I said, there's so much great talent in this. And I'm including Moffat himself. He can be a really good writer. It's just so saddening that this is how it comes up. This is how it always ends. And it could have all been avoided if there was just some kind of restraint in there. If someone had just pulled him back and said, no, hang on, you can't just take the characters from one scene to another. You need to actually think about this. You need to cut some of this out. Anything, really. If Sherlock does continue for another series, which it doesn't look likely at this point, I'm not sure if I'm even gonna watch it, honestly.
And that's sad, because this is Sherlock. This is like if a hypothetical Poirot adaptation just ended on that one shot of the main antagonist of Evil Under the Sun monologuing and then getting shot by a submarine.
Yeah, that actually is a pretty good analogy. It's the show going so far removed from what it once was in terms of both quality and, well, series tone. And it's just replaced with Moffat bending the show and reality itself backwards in order to make whatever he wants to happen. And Moffat, I like you, but I just think, like I said on Twitter, I think you need to take a long break from writing, or at least show running, until you've calmed down a bit, okay?
Yeah, either that or please get checked for senility, because this is getting ridiculous. I'm a little concerned.
Yeah, that's the thing now. It's not really me being angry as such, it's more just me getting really concerned that this is where both of those shows have ended up, and I'm actually getting really worried if New Who will be able to survive if this is how it keeps up. So I'm actually kind of glad now that someone is changing hands, because I know many people have dropped out of New Doctor Who for similar reasons, that it's just getting a bit too ridiculous and a bit up itself.
Yeah, and the thing is, even if Chibnall completely 180s and goes back to Russell T. Davis's legendary melodrama, that's better than this Moon logic.
Yeah, so... yeah, that's kind of my feelings on Sherlock. Great start, really unfortunate end, and... yeah, I apologise for using Sven and my podcasting audience as my therapist.
That's what we're there for. I mean, I use those exact same two things as my therapy for f***ing Walking Dead Season 2.
That is true, yes.
And, hey, to end this review off on a high note, at least Sherlock Season 4 was not The Walking Dead game Season 2.
That is actually true. At least it didn't end with everyone's violent murder.
Yeah, and really, really disturbing commentary on disabled people in an apocalypse. Moving on!
Yeah, let's definitely seek a more positive note with our last section, which is...
Quickfire Reviews!
This is the section where we review everything else we've read, watched, or played, but within the maximum time limit of 60 seconds. Sven, do you have anything for this?
Not really. In the last month, I finished both Legend of Grimrock games and got back into New Vegas, which I've already reviewed, so yeah, that's been my month.
Fair enough. I have a couple of things to go over then. First off,
Metal Gear Solid 3. Yes, I'm going to do a VTT about it someday, but to give you the Cliff Notes version, it is really enjoyable. It's a game that is not only one of the best Metal Gear Solid games, but it's probably the closest thing we're going to get to a really good Bond game anytime soon, not counting GoldenEye, of course. And it is also a really interesting stealth game with some survival elements in there and some really creative enemy AI that you can mess with. For instance, I always remember the moment where I blew up the enemy's food supply in one map, and then in the second map, as one soldier was complaining about how hungry he was, I distracted him by throwing rations at him, and the last thing I heard before I snuck out the area was, "Oh god, this is awful."
Well, that's a summary of MREs in a nutshell.
yeah, pretty much so. Also, because it was the other thing I brought up in this same podcast.
The first half of Lucha Underground Season 3. Yeah, they've had a mid-season finale, which admittedly may not have been part of the original plan, as MVL tells me that some contract disputes have come up, but regardless, it's been a really entertaining ride so far. Whilst I'm still not particularly fond of how the championship battle's gone, by which I mean it's still not ending, but I still really enjoy the other storylines, such as the Snake Tribe storylines and everything that's happened with Matanza. Especially the final battle of said mid-season finale. Holy crap, that was a really epic confrontation between him and El Dragon Azteca Jr., and I look forward to seeing more. If there is more. Please resolve these contract disputes, please.
I'll have hope for your sake, if for no other reason than I love epic duels.
Indeed, yes, especially with the ending move of that last episode, but I'll talk about that another time. And with that brings the Q&A session, and... not the Q&A session. Oh god, we're in a Moffat time loop.
Wait, oh god. We've looped back to the start of this review.
For you see, the Q&A session never ended, Sven. It's still going on.
No, we've been dimension locked into the monologue reality.
So, whilst fancy graphics are appearing all around me, I will say that this is indeed the end of the quickfire review section, and indeed this podcast. Thank you to everyone who listened. Please keep the questions and comments coming, and until next time, I've been the Jonin Monkey.
And I've been Sven the Crusader. Our first question comes from Mandu. Hi, Mandu. Have an
Monkey Broadcast, a monthly review and discussion show hosted by the Jonin Monkey and Sven the Crusader. If you feel you've been the subject of slander or that your copyright is misused, send an email to thejoninmonkey@yahoo.co.uk. For more news and media reviews, follow me on Twitter @thejoninmonkey and go to thejoninmonkey.podbean.com for previous podcasts and MP3 downloads. All music used belongs to the original owners. Until next month, have fun, kids!